Hello and welcome to Policy Watch, your weekly snapshot of the top business stories of the week, their context, their relevance and impact. I'm Govindraj, Ethiraj. The government is cracking down on black money. A undisclosed foreign income and assets bill is to be tabled soon in Parliament. The big question that people are asking is this likely to result in a more draconian regime, considering that the government has been talking about, including in the union budget, a less adversarial tax regime. Joining me to discuss this is Mithil Joshi and TP Oswal, both international tax consultants. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. Mr. Oswal, let me begin with you. So let's look at the first one, right? So we're trying to tackle black money at an international level as well as an Indian level, right? So let's look at international first. Undisclosed foreign income and assets bill. What does that mean for someone, particularly an ordinary person? Does it mean anything at all?
Nothing.
Okay.
Because this means to a person who has a bank account abroad.
Okay.
Or assets abroad.
Right.
It has nothing to do with the ordinary person like me who has no account anywhere.
Okay. But so, a young student could be having a bank account, and a lot of them have expressed concerns.
You see, the young student who has an account abroad, and the account was opened when he was a non-resident or he is a non-resident, there is no issue on that.
Okay.
The issue is if it is not disclosed in the tax returns. If the account is fully disclosed in the tax return and the transactions arising in that account are reflected, then there is no question.
Okay.
The question now which you asked, a very serious issue, if the students are studying abroad, opening an account, now the issue is if they are asked the question, where did you get remittance from? And if the parents have the Swiss account, therefrom which the remittances have gone to the Swiss, from the Swiss account to the student's account in a foreign country, then at any point in time this issue can trigger an inquiry in the hands of the student. How did you get this money from?
Okay.
Can you just explain? And that could lead to the questioning to the parents.
Okay.
How did you fetch the money? And therefore that will lead to details of that account as well.
Okay. Right. So let's come to the the non-student or the non-lay person as well. Mithil, what's your sense when you look at these two things, the undisclosed foreign income and assets bill as well as the Benami transactions bill? The larger theme, which was also articulated in the union budget, was that we want to go after black money. Right?
Correct.
And that's been a continuing theme even during the elections last year and so on. So is this achieving that target or moving towards achieving that target?
In a sense, yes, because there have been, after these announcements have been made, there have been a lot of inquiries coming in that, oh, what should I do with all my bank accounts abroad? There have been Navy members who've had bank accounts abroad, either when they've been partly non-residents or residents. There have been students, as you referred earlier, and there have been several other businessmen who've kind of tried to keep away accounts abroad in some form or the other, and they're all in a way scared, and they're saying, okay, what should I do? Because the moment you see prosecution, everybody and everybody's eyes start getting alarmed, and the whole market starts looking at it that, oh, prosecution, that means I need to introspect, check if I've ever had any legacy of such accounts, if ever my dealings have led to such accounts, if I've been associated with my friend's account in that manner.
So if nothing else, it's put the fear of God into a lot of people. Okay, TP, 10 years rigorous imprisonment, no settlement, agencies can confiscate the assets that you have. Is this too draconian for something like this?
Well, the radical solutions only can bring some reforms, and these are the reforms. And no government had any will to catch hold of such tax dodgers so far in 65 years. We have been coming out with an amnesty schemes 20 years before, every 5 years.
But is this a question of penalizing them or catching them? Because this doesn't seem to sort of address the catching of people who are taking out black money or secreting it away.
Catching is certainly, because you see the atmosphere in the world is changing. From 1st January 2018, world over, there will be automatic exchange of information. As a result of this automatic exchange of information, online transactions which are going on the basis of one country and other country, they will be reported to the government of two countries. Not only that, the government will be also able to access the information of the bank account from the other country. There will be no secrecy, everything transparency. No,
and the US government is already doing something similar.
No, that is FATCA.
Yeah.
That is FATCA.
Yeah. For its citizens. Yeah.
No, not for its citizens. Citizen, green card holder, resident, everything. Okay. And we have gone by bilateral exchange of information under the FATCA. Now, if G20 initiative leads to this exchange of information and everything is going to become transparent, therefore everybody has to worry. As of
Okay,
today.
you're saying the world itself is changing, so we are only a part of that world which is going along in terms of
That's right.
transparency of information.
That's right.
Okay, but is the world also imposing such strict penalties on those who don't
There are a
declare?
number of countries where such strict penalties are there, and
Okay.
this is a common initiative by G20.
Okay.
It's not something which can come implementation or the enforcement of this is possible without stricter penalty.
Okay, Mithil, do you agree?
Yeah, because what has happened is US has come out with the offshore voluntary declaration of asset scheme in 2010, and in the OVDI scheme and OVDA scheme, where all of the individuals they had a process where the maximum balance 20% of that was required to be paid by the residents of US or passport holders of US or green card holders or holding F1 visas. All of them were obliged to declare that, failing which there have been instances of jailing of the SSEs in US. Similarly, South Africa has had 2 such declaration schemes in the past, and several other countries. I think it's just out of G20 to an extent, and also getting all the countries to declare their
Right, so
assets.
let me ask the next question, so which sort of comes logically from this. Are we giving too much power once again to our tax authorities to
Yes, certainly I would say that the atmosphere world over and atmosphere
because
in
the
India
same finance minister said that I want to remove the adversarial nature or bring to an end the adversarial nature of the tax
these are all political statements. Let me honestly say these are all political statements, because this budget, if you look at, on the contrary, he has made the law so complicated that it is difficult for anybody to say that it is adversarial.
It's non-adversarial.
Non-adversarial regime has been created or adversarial has been continued. Continued it with a more vigor. So, for example, the place of effective management, POEM, in place of control and management. In a country like ours, which is absolutely where the atmosphere is, you are considered as dishonest unless otherwise proved. Whereas world over it is not the case. In Europe or in US, it is considered as you are honest unless otherwise proved.
No, so which is again, so the thematic question again is with these 2 bills, and I'm going to come to domestic in a moment, are we perpetuating this approach of what you said, you're dishonest until proved honest, or are we sort of heading to a more friendly regime?
No, I don't think so. We are going for a friendly regime.
Okay.
I disagree with you that we are not going for a friendly regime. Okay. Certainly, we want, but this such enforcement is very essential as well.
Okay.
I am not talking generally. I am talking as far as this regime is concerned. Black money regime is concerned. This is very essential. It is required. Unless you have similar provisions, nobody is going to comply.
Okay. So, Mithil, let's talk quickly about, I know both of you are international tax consultants, but there is a Benami transactions bill also which will come at some point. What is the merit of this, considering that all of us seem to know that there's black money everywhere, including in areas like real estate, but no serious attempt ever made to crack down on it?
You see, the way India has been designed and the way we've all grown, with very high rate of taxes, what has happened is that the Aam Aadmi and the businessman on the street and the entrepreneur has the mindset to evade, and the several points of evasion have been bogus companies using bogus purchase and sales routes, all of that, bogus expenditures. Now, essentially, this is what generates what you call as the black money, and this black money moves in the system, and then it's a question of deploying them. So you deploy them in assets, which is a real estate. So what these Benami transactions, like we are exposed to a situation where there are some 60 or 70 companies under one entity, and then they're closed down in over 3 years of time with some transactions, multiple transactions. Now, the tax office finds it difficult to again find out, get the cross confirmations.
So
that is
what
their
you're
job.
saying is that there is a problem today, but my question is, does this bill or potential bill address this problem?
No, Benami, the Property Act which you mentioned, the later one, which already exists in India since 1988.
Yes.
But it was mainly opposed by the politicians. Because the threshold kept was so low. If you are found to be in possession with 25 lakhs of rupees and all sort of things, and the properties are owned by you in the name of your somebody else. Now today's provisions, the present Benami Prohibition Act is so draconian that even if you hold the property in the name of your brother, sister, ex-wife, could be, the provisions could be applied and properties could be confiscated. I think there is no rationale in doing so.
Okay.
As long as it is held in the name of a relative, and if you have funded it, and you can trace the funding, and you are saying that I have funded, I have given a loan, then why should there be Benami Prohibition Act applicable? This is meant for genuinely a draconian things like, I purchase the property in the name of third party who has no means to purchase. And then I am showing that I have funded that property.
And there have been some cases like that. I think so. There is once again, this seems to be going after the exception rather than the rule.
Correct.
Right? Okay, which is a larger problem. So let's sort of kind of get a wrap on this. We started by saying that we want to crack down on black money, improve the quality of money flow in the economy, maybe bring out more money into productive assets and so on. Is this achieving it?
In my opinion, partly yes, partly no.
Okay.
Because
and what needs to be done? Therefore, if we are to
the question is go to genesis of black money. We started addressing this issue in 2007, 8, 9, 10, when the economies were in a downturn, world economies and not Indian economy. And by that time there was huge hue and cry made on the black money. But problem came up is that we have exchange of information with some of the countries which are very restricted. Right. Some countries had secrecy laws. As a result, we could not get any information, so we could not do anything. Now, to address that, we have now come out with this solution. And now the world after 2012 has gone different than world before 2012. We could not get any information from Switzerland.
So what's the sort of, what do we need to do now?
No. Therefore, what I am trying to say, therefore, I was coming to the main point. During this intermediary period, people have already moved the money from Switzerland
to Singapore,
and number
or some other country.
Number of jurisdictions from Singapore. From Switzerland. To number of jurisdictions. I don't want to name them. But which is in public domain. So as a result, the money is in the whole target is Switzerland. Money is not there. What do you do? Okay. And the monies now which have come in the country, which is already used in the system, which is already invested into Indian systems.
So it's already round tripped back, you're saying?
It is not a round tripping. It has been invested in India. How do you say round tripping? It has not gone out of the country.
Okay.
It has been generated out of the country, accumulated out of the country.
Okay.
And then money is invested into country.
So, which is in a way good news.
Good news, yes, our economy has been using that money. But now if you say that you have an opportunity to clear that in one window for 30 days or 90 days or one year.
Which is a concern area as well. So, last point, Mithil, what's your sense? So, all these bills, the way the tax authority are likely to implement it, is it good news or not?
It is, because see, the biggest problem for the Indian tax authorities was to identify assessees, the Aam Aadmi on the road and the businessmen who have money abroad, and because it is not an criminal act, this does not constitute. Now, by including prosecution and calling it and classifying it as a criminal act, what has happened is now for them, Indian tax authorities, to get information from all these 60, 70, 80 jurisdictions all across the globe will be far easier and getting information.
Right. And of course, globally we are moving towards a more free exchange of information system. So therefore things will improve. And therefore, if you are an honest taxpayer or you've messed up or slipped up in the past, this is your chance to get things right. We need to go in for a break on Policy Watch. On the other side, we talk about whether private airlines, the new ones, should be allowed to fly internationally. Stay with us. Welcome back to Policy Watch. A big contentious issue in the past has been, should Indian carriers or airlines be allowed to fly internationally, and if so, under what conditions? The rules that govern this have been changed again, or likely to be changed, with the previous guideline of 5 years and 20 aircraft likely to be replaced with a new guideline of direct flying credits. The big question is, does this really help airlines, or should we wait for a more comprehensive aviation policy? Joining me to discuss that is Jitendra Bhargav, former director at Air India. Mr. Bhargav, thank you very much for speaking with us. So this is an interesting point, right? So first, let me ask a question. Many airlines do want to fly abroad, and we're talking about private domestic airlines. Is it a lucrative business for Indian airlines to fly abroad?
See, not really. There has been too much of competition. Indian government, through their policies on bilaterals, has allowed foreign carriers to have so much capacity in and out of India that they have a stranglehold. So for any Indian carrier to fly abroad, they have to be very aggressive, they have to have deep pockets, which they do not have. So Indian carriers, it doesn't serve their purpose to fly, unless of course we are talking in terms of Air Vistara, which is fresh into the market, with deep pocket, with the backing of Singapore Airlines, it will be very good for them.
But so what does this mean? So we are looking at two sets of airlines now. We have the older set, which is the Indigos and Go Airs and so on, who've been around, fulfilled the 5 years by 20 aircraft condition. And we're talking about these two new ones, which is Air Asia and Air Vistara. So the government now has said that we are introducing a new system of assessing you and deciding whether you can indeed fly abroad. So, which is the domestic flying credit stipulation. What does this mean?
It is imperative to go back first. 520 policy was formulated by the government to primarily help one carrier when private airlines had come in, which is Jet Airways. So that other carriers had not completed 5 years of flying, did not have a fleet of 20, so they put in this condition, which is not in existence anywhere in the world. So everybody is unanimous
But
that
this
it's
is
a
your
bad
contention. This is your contention.
It's not my contention, it's the contention of the whole industry.
Okay.
Everybody is clear, unanimous that it's not a desirable policy.
Okay.
And they want to do away with it.
Okay.
But the reality is that
People have lived through with it.
But the existing, the fact is that the existing players, Jet Airways, Indigo, SpiceJet, have all endured this policy. They could only fly abroad after having completed this. So now once there is a clamor from the new players, AirAsia, as well as Air Vistara, to do away with this policy. Now what do you do in these circumstances? On one side, the existing players do not want the policy to be done away with because they want, it means enhanced competition for them. On the other side, the new players want
No,
it.
the moral argument, which is that they've lived through this for 5 years and therefore why should someone else
So
get
there
the
is some
benefit?
merit in it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when this policy is not a sound policy, does not exist anywhere in the world, why do you want it? So there has been a government has been in a dilemma. What do you do? So they're trying to find a mean between the two to satisfy both the groups.
Okay.
So
So
they
does
have
this-
come out with this policy, with the new thinking and policy, that look, you fly abroad in India, earn domestic flying credits, and then you will be eligible to fly abroad.
and
Which basically
funnily
reduces
enough,
the period of 5 years to
Correct.
something like 2.5
But
years.
it's a funny incentive thing. So you're actually saying that if I fly to, let's say, Dibrugarh from Mumbai regularly, I will be provided the incentive to fly to Dubai. Whereas there
That's
seems to be no connection.
You earn credits
Yeah.
for flying somewhere in the domestic, which are low density routes,
Yeah.
where there is no kind of lucrative business available.
Yeah.
So therefore you earn flying credits, and it makes you
But
eligible
should
to
there
fly.
be a competence issue as well? I mean, or is it something that's, if I can fly to a sort of regional airport in India, therefore I'm equally qualified to fly to Dubai, Doha,
One is
etc.
do away in totality
Okay.
and say we don't need it. It's not a sound policy. Let's do away with it. What does it mean? It harms the existing players who've endured this policy. So government is trying to find a mean. How do I satisfy the old players as well as the new players? So they've come out with this thing, which I do not think is a very sound policy.
Okay.
It would have been in the interest of the government, in the interest of the aviation industry, had they made it as a part of a comprehensive aviation policy on which they are working, rather than come out with a piecemeal solution.
Right. Okay. So, which comes back in some ways to the more fundamental question: is it lucrative for the airline to fly overseas? And on the other hand, let's ask the passenger question: do passengers prefer to fly an Indian airline or a brand that they're familiar with to international destinations?
You see, it's no longer foreign airline versus Indian
It's a brand. No, I'm
carriers.
talking about brands. I mean, Indigo is a domestic brand, Go Air is a domestic brand. I'm comfortable with it, or SpiceJet, and therefore maybe I want to fly with them internationally.
No, why were people choosing an Indian carrier earlier?
Okay.
You had Hindi-speaking hostesses, you had Indian food. All foreign carriers offer that now.
Okay.
So the divide that existed earlier when Air India was the sole player no longer exists. That's one. Number two, all the Indian players who have been eligible to fly abroad after completing 5/20 norm have concentrated their flights onto the Southeast Asian destinations and to the Gulf destinations. Nobody has ventured, barring Jet, to fly to Europe and the United States, or even to Australia and Japan.
But they can do that.
For example, they can do it, but
Okay.
they're not doing
Okay.
it. So clearly, it is not 100% lucrative for everyone to fly. Air India, the sole player. Now, under this new policy that is being thought of by the government, it stipulates that once you've earned a certain number of domestic flying credits, you will be able to fly to destinations 6 hours and beyond. Now, which are these 6 hours and beyond destinations? The whole of Europe, Africa, United States, Canada, Japan, Australia, right? So South Korea, etc.
Yeah. But
now,
I mean, I think what you mean is it's not Middle East and it's not Southeast Asia.
No. So
Yeah.
they have made a distinction between it.
Yeah.
They said no, for flying to Southeast Asia and to the Gulf destinations, you will need a higher number of domestic flying credits, which is in a way a good sound decision. Because the moment you have too many airlines flying into this, you utilize your seats quantum. So the foreign carriers from these countries come and ask for more bilateral rights. And they don't use their bilateral seats on this Gulf and India destinations or Southeast Asia and this thing. They use it for destinations beyond. That is why Emirates is being referred to as India's national carrier, because they fly too many of the Indian passengers onto Europe and United States. So it's
let's
in a
come back to
way,
the-
so
yeah.
6 hours has become a factor kind of a thing, which is arbitrary.
Yeah.
But Indigo doesn't fly. SpiceJet doesn't fly, only Jet flies. So who's going to be a victim of this policy? Air India, which doesn't have a voice. Private airlines have lobbied very strongly against the abrogation of 520 rule.
But why
through
does
the
Air
FIA.
India arguably need a voice? I mean, they've been around, they're settled, they're not a new player looking for some kind of
Look,
benefit.
as a
or-
government airline, it suffers from disadvantages. Let's be very clear
Okay.
about it. Once you have competition, better airlines flying, who's the loser? Now, Air India is saddled with 50 long-haul aircraft, as we all know, the controversial decision on it, of which 40 have been delivered, of which 5 have been sold, so 35 are still there. Now, once you allow
Right.
these new carriers to fly abroad to long-haul destinations, what do you do with Air India?
Okay.
Either
So-
government takes a decision on Air India's future.
Right. Okay. So let's come back to the point. So we started by asking that this whole issue of trying to sort of incentivize or disincentivize airlines to fly abroad, fly to new regional destinations or old regional destinations or smaller destinations, it needs a more comprehensive approach, right? So if we are saying we need a more comprehensive aviation policy and all this should be bundled into it, what are the 3 or 4 things that should be done then?
You see, first is what is Air India going to be in aviation sector? Where do you want to take it? So far, we have been congratulating ourselves or patting our backs to say that by 2020, India will be the 3rd largest market. Now, that's on the strength of passengers. The question is, do you have MROs? Do you have airports as hubs? Do you have a mega carrier? Are you concerned about the health of the Indian carriers and airport? The answer is no. So the only thing that you are doing is to pack yourself for the number of passengers that you're producing. Now, question is, if you have your Indian passengers, who should be the beneficiaries of that market? Indian players. Now, we have offered on a platter Indian domestic market, Indian international passengers onto the foreign carriers,
Right.
because Indian government has not taken.
So in a way,
no,
you're
let's just one
yeah.
pertinent point. Indian government has not devised policies which provide a market which is conducive for profitability.
Right.
High
No, so-
taxation, airport charges,
Correct. No,
ATF,
fair enough.
etc.
So that's a different discussion. So in a way, you're saying, therefore, that you should allow Indian carriers to fly overseas on easier terms because that puts them on par with international carriers. To sum up our discussion, which we
It
started.
depends who you are asking.
Yeah.
If you ask an existing player, the answer is yes. The answer is no. If you ask a new player, the answer is they will not agree on it.
So 8% is this is the first formal new growth estimate that's been put out by a large rating agency. What's your sense?
See, the point is that obviously, as you know, there is a difference between the old and the new series. But having said that, if they are telling sequentially the growth is going up from 7.4 to 8%. So obviously they are telling that the outlook for the India is improving. So it's a reaffirmation of what the government was talking about.
So that's, you're saying, fundamentally they're on the same path. However, the difference between 2015-16 and 16-17, 8 to 8.3%, which is really in keeping with their earlier target 6.5 to point. So it's really a 0.3%.
Yeah.
Now that seems to suggest that there seems no indication of any additional expectation of growth.
See, first and foremost, if this is too far away. That's too far away. You are taking a call beyond 12 months. So obviously people tend to be slightly conservative on a call which is too far away. Second, this of course also indicate that they are not expecting a very strong recovery in investment in India. So that's the basic.
And they've talked about low investment levels, weak corporate balance sheets and so on. So what's your sense? I know we are revisiting this question almost every 8 weeks or 9 weeks, but what's your sense about, and in as much as where we stand? I mean, we've had a good we've had a union budget which at least to some people has been positive. We've had rate cuts. Is that all adding up to something which could spur the economy?
Having said that, the main problem, which is a slowdown of investment, that still continues. Partly it's global, because if you see, major part of the investment happens in manufacturing, and manufacturing is a global segment. So if there is overcapacity anywhere, or there is an infirmity of demand anywhere in the world, that impacts the capex in India as well.
Right.
So that's playing out over here. The place where the investment can take place is infrastructure, and that's where government is pushing. But having said that, if you look at the infrastructure NPA for the banks. If you look at the funding problems for the infrastructure sector, so that's something which is not very clear. There is the intent to push it. Government is trying to improve the conditions of doing business, particularly in the infrastructure, roads, railways. But whether that will yield the desired result, more importantly, within what time frame, that's the real question. So there is some level of uncertainty over here.
Okay, right. So if you were to now spin forward, what is the missing gap? So we are saying clearly investment needs to be speeded up or stepped up, of which government investment will have to play a critical role. Private investment too needs to go up, but that's a little while away because of so many other reasons, including the state of balance sheet. So what then can sort of hasten things?
See, I think what is the most important thing here? You have to improve the conditions for doing business. So that's why it's the direction, but it's easier said than done. Government is initiating various steps towards that, but if you talk to the companies at the ground level, not things are moving as fast as they would have expected to do. So there is obviously a lacuna there.
Right.
Apart from that, what you have to understand also, that there has been a huge increase in the indebtedness of the Indian corporate, and given the global uncertainty, that again poses some problem to how fast investment can recover, how fast private investment can come back.
So Sujan, last question. So any bright spots that you see ahead in the economy at this point?
See, if you see particularly from the perspective of the rating agencies, two of the biggest glitches for India to get a credit rating upgrade has been inflation and fiscal deficit. Now, clearly we have seen inflation has turned around very significantly, and our assessment is that inflation over the next 24 months will hover around 5% kind of range. Okay. So that's a huge bright spot, because between 2008 to 14, if you see, average inflation was very close to 10%.
Double digits, yeah.
So that's a very bright spot. Second thing, what you are also seeing, that there is a huge amount of fiscal consolidation happening, more so at the state level and also at the central level. So the consolidated fiscal deficit, which ballooned to close to 10% in 2008-2009 kind of place, that is coming down, and it's quite possible that within the foreseeable future, say next 2 to 3 years, it will come very close to 4.5% of GDP. So I think these are the two very bright spots for the Indian economy, particularly from a credit rating perspective.
Right. Okay. And hopefully that is something that we shall be looking out for, because after the budget, I don't think that the big rating agencies were very favorable. So hopefully that will improve, and hopefully we shall see more investment, which will catch up with some of the bright spots. Sujan, thank you very much for joining us. Well, that's all we have time for in this edition of Policy Watch. We'll be back next week, same time. Thanks for watching.